All the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89, Chapter 81, 5th Year, Unforgivable. Remus, James and Mr. Potter ran forward at once. Remus collapsed to his knees, reaching Sirius first. He was lying face down, black hair pouring like blood onto the red carpet. Remus didn't even think, just rolled him over. His face was pale, his eyes were closed, but he was alive. Yes, Remus could hear Sirius's heart pounding hard behind his ribs. He could smell the stink of fear mixed with adrenaline. Sirius! James was there too, pressing his head to Sirius's chest to listen. He's alive, Remus said, his voicing sounding strange. He was clutching Sirius's shoulder still, where he had turned him. He couldn't let go, his hands fisting the fine velvet dress robes. Effie! Mr. Potter was shouting. Quickly! He bent over Sirius. Stand back, boys. Give him some air. Sirius stirred, slightly. His eyelashes fluttered, but nothing more. What's wrong with him? Remus asked the room, desperately. Mr. Potter was guiding him away. He had to let go. He crawled backwards, crab-like, as Mrs. Potter rushed in. He knew his legs wouldn't stand just yet. Euphemia Potter was on the carpet in seconds, pulling Sirius's head into her lap. He must have made another noise because she started whispering to him, sweet small things. Shh, now, love, I'm here. You're safe. Shh. Remus felt his eyes well up, drawing his legs up under his chin and wrapped his arms around him. What was happening? He looked over at James, sitting opposite him on the living room floor, just as shocked, just as frightened. There was a distant crack outside, and Mr. Potter left the room, returning moments later with Dumbledore. He seemed to bring the cold in with him. Remus felt the chill settle into his bones despite the fire which continued to blaze. Moody's outside, the old man said to James's father. Protective charms, everything in his arsenal. No one else will be coming here tonight. Good, Remus thought. Good. Lock us all up in here. Never let anyone near him again. How is he, Effie? Dumbledore stood over Mrs. Potter, who was still cradling Sirius. She was performing some kind of magic, her eyes closed, one running over the unconscious boy's body. Her lips were moving fast without making a sound. She eventually looked up, more shaken than Remus had ever seen her, fire of rage in her eyes. He'll live, she said. He needs rest. Was it? Mr. Potter looked nervous. Mrs. Potter closed her eyes again and nodded. Cruciatus. James covered his face with his hands. Remus just felt empty, as if everything that had ever made any kind of sense to him had been wrung out. The torture curse. Boys, Mr. Potter suddenly said, sharply, looking at James, then Remus. I know you want to stay, but we need you to go to bed, just now. There's nothing that you can do for Sirius at the moment. But Dad, James started, climbing shakily to his feet. There were tears in his eyes too. James, Mrs. Potter said, from the floor. No, bed. She didn't shout, but every man in the room seemed to shrink slightly. There was no question of disobeying her. Remus wasn't sure how he got up, whether Dumbledore had helped him, or whether he did it himself. Nor was he sure how he left the room that Sirius was in. It seemed like hours later that he was standing on the first floor landing with James. Gully was lighting candles throughout the house, moving silently. The portraits along the staircases were sleeping. James held open his bedroom door, and Remus went inside without a word. They lay on the bed, side by side, over the covers still in their clothes. They had been sitting on the same bed only 2 or 3 hours before, waiting for Sirius to tell them if he was okay. In the dark, James and Remus collected themselves, giving each other the time they needed. James broke the quiet, of course. He's here now, he said, tonelessly. He's here now, and Mum won't ever let him go back. I know it. Remus nodded, because there weren't any words. He didn't know if James saw. They were both staring straight up. His mind was racing, and he said the first thing that felt like a coherent thought. Is that what happens with that curse? I don't know. Never seen it. No, of course. Mum used to be a healer. If anyone can help him. And Dumbledore's here. Yeah, exactly. If he's... Remus's voice cracked, and he stopped talking. I know, mate, James whispered. They did not speak again until the morning. Christmas Day 1975. Remus couldn't believe he had fallen asleep. He cursed himself for being so thoughtless, so selfish. "You've no right to him," he told himself angrily as he sat up, climbing off of James's huge, comfortable four-poster bed. "You've no right to call yourself his friend at all if you can't even stay awake when he's—" He didn't know how Sirius was. He left James still sleeping and went to the bathroom. It was morning, and the curtains had been drawn, presumably by Gully, and the watery winter daylight filled the stairwell. The house was very quiet. No one else was awake yet. There was no usual smell of breakfast cooking or tea brewing in the hub. After he'd been to the loo and had a quick wash, Remus stood awkwardly in the hall. He didn't want to go back to James's room. That seemed a bit weird, especially when he had his own things all laid out in one of the guest rooms. Sirius was in the room at the end of the hall. Remus could smell him. Mrs. Potter was in there too. He didn't know where Mr. Potter was. "Master Lupin!" A squeaky voice startled him from the stairs. It was Gully, his big brown eyes full of innocent concern. "Is you wanting breakfast, Master Lupin?" Remus shook his head. "No, thank you." "'Tis a terrible thing. Terrible bad thing." The wizened little creature shook his head sadly, ears wilting like a sorry puppy. "Yes, terrible." Remus sat on the stairs, glad for someone to talk to. "I'm telling my mistress and my master. We's got to be careful. We's got to protect our own. Gully is thinking we should go into hiding. Gully knows lots of families going into hiding now." Gully's brow creased, as if he was trying to remember something exactly right. "But my mistress is saying to me, 'Gully, we is responsible. We is a good lucky family and we is many good things.' Mistress tells me we need to be looking after everyone we can. She says if we don't, we is having nothing worth protecting at all." "Didn't do a very good job of protecting Sirius." Remus scuffed the carpet angrily with his toe. "No." Gully shook his big round head again. "Always, in war, there was people getting hurt." Remus bit his lip. Behind them, a door opened. "Gully," the weak voice of Mrs. Potter came. "Will you come and sit with Sirius while I—" "Oh, hello, Remus dear." She had been up all night, that was clear, but she still had a smile for him. "Is he okay?" Remus stood up. "No lasting damage," she croaked, her smile waning slightly. "Not on the outside, anyway. He's sleeping still, just a mild dose of potion. Would you like to sit with him? I need a little lie down before Monty gets home." Yeah, of course." Remus started forward, eager to help in any way he could. He crossed the landing quickly and slipped into the room. "Send Gully to wake me as soon as he opens his eyes," Euphemia said, patting his shoulder gently. "Dumbledore will want to speak to him. He wanted to last night, but I wouldn't let him. Poor lamb." "He was conscious then, last night?" "Yes, for a little while," Euphemia sighed deeply, hollow with exhaustion. "But he was in no fit state for an interrogation." Remus nodded dumbly. She closed the door behind her. The room was dark, but that was okay. Remus could see in the dark. Often, he liked it. The figure lying in the bed could not possibly be his friend Sirius Black, because Sirius Black never slept like that, facing up, hands by his side, covers neatly tucked over his chest. Sirius slept like a dog, all rummaged sheets and limbs akimbo, face down, arms thrown wide. Remus approached with caution. Was this how it was, he wondered, the morning after a full moon? Was this how it felt to see a friend torn apart? It was unbearable. He sat in the seat by the bedside, a squashy purple armchair with a book splayed open on one arm. Unforgivable, caring for victims of curses and hexes. Remus closed the book, wondering whether Mrs. Potter had needed to consult it many times before. There was a handkerchief underneath it, damp with tears. Remus could smell the salt. It must have been difficult for her, as a healer and a mother. Had she looked at this black-haired boy and seen James? Had she wondered what kind of parent would do such a thing? He sat in the quiet, listening to Sirius breathing. Stupidly, he thought of Grant, who could probably be of no help at all, except that he probably would have hugged Remus, and Remus felt that hug was the only thing he wanted in the world just now. The church bells echoed from up the hill from the village. It was Christmas Day. James came in and joined him, after an hour or so. He brought tea, and Remus accepted it gratefully. James raised his dark eyebrows at Remus, questioning, and Remus shook his head. No. James sat on the arm of the chair, and they did not speak. It was another hour before Sirius so much as moved, a quiet stirring and then a flicker in his features. Before his eyes opened, Effie was asleep. It took him a moment to focus, and the room was still very gloomy. When he finally caught the shapes of James and Remus, his brow furrowed, then he cracked a smile. "Bloody hell," he said hoarsely. "Who died?" James laughed. "Wanker." "Sore spot," Sirius threw back. "Arse." "Oi!" Sirius pushed himself up onto his elbows. "Be nice. I'm an invalid, you know." "Tell you what," James grinned. "You really know how to make an entrance." "It's in my noble blood," Sirius smiled, then faltered, his eyes suddenly stricken. They all fell quiet again. "Sorry," he muttered, looking down. "Tea?" "Please." "Gully!" James summoned the house elf. He was only too pleased to serve. "So," Sirius asked, the colour slowly returning to his cheeks, "you two been keeping a bedside vigil for me?" "Actually, it's Mum who was up all night." "Oh, yeah." Sirius's face grew distant, closed off. "I'll thank her, obviously. Say sorry for showing up like that." "Don't be stupid," James shook his head. "She'd do anything for you. She loves you." Sirius's eyes filled with tears and he looked away. Fortunately, Gully reappeared at that moment with a tea tray laden with cups, saucers, toast, muffins, sausages, eggs, scrambled, fried and boiled, smoked salmon, kippers, and even cereal. None of them ate very much. Remus was hungry, starving actually, but everything tasted like plastic, so in the end he downed cup after cup of scalding tea. No milk, no sugar. He wasn't angry yet. Anger was his usual response to feeling helpless, or sad, or in pain, but he felt like it might come later. Just now, he wanted to be whatever Sirius needed. "Oh," he said, suddenly. "I was supposed to get your mum, James, as soon as Sirius woke up." "Let her sleep," Sirius said, resting back on his pillows. "No, she wanted me to, so that she could get Dumbledore." "What for?" James asked, perplexed. "Everything's fine, now." He wanted to ask some questions. "No," Sirius said. James and Remus both turned to look at Sirius, who had paled again, his eyes big and frightened. "Please," he said. "Not yet, just let me have Christmas, okay? I don't want to talk about it." "Okay, mate. It's okay," James said, softly, leaning over to pat Sirius's shoulder. "We won't wake her up. You can pretend to be asleep if you want. Anything you want." "Thanks," Sirius relaxed back again. "Sorry." Pfft, James blew his hair up from his forehead. "It's Christmas, isn't it?"